Hi, I am Rick Bonney, Director Emeritus of the Public Engagement and Science Program at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. This presentation is part of a 10-module training program on developing and implementing citizen science projects for which scientists collaborate with members of the public to address real-world problems. The goal for this program is to introduce fundamental concepts of citizen science in U.S. federal land management agencies, which often use citizen science to manage resources and to engage the public in agency missions. This program was developed by several partners, including staff from the U.S. Forest Service, the National Park Service, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Bureau of Land Management, and Schoodic Institute at Acadia National Park. This is the 5th module in our 10-module series. Module 4 discussed identifying the team members who will design and implement your project and explored your project audience, the group of individuals with whom you wish to work. This presentation focuses on expanding your project team by working with stakeholders and partners to achieve scientific and resource management objectives for parks, forests, grasslands, refuges, or similar lands and protected waters, and it fits within our 10-part series here. 3 takeaways for this module are that first, stakeholders can help ensure that project data and information will be useful and widely shared. Second, partners can add to the capacity and effectiveness of your project team. And third, enlisting partners begins with sharing clear goals and desired project outcomes. What is a stakeholder, and why is identifying and involving stakeholders important to citizen science projects? The term actually has a large number of definitions. At its simplest, a stakeholder is any individual, group, or party that has an interest in a project and an interest in the outcomes of its actions. From that point of view, any citizen science project could have many stakeholders, ranging from individuals who might use the data to groups that may be impacted by project outcomes. Therefore, after identifying project participants and building a project team, identifying the stakeholders who will be interested in or impacted by your project's outcomes is a valuable next step. You can then determine stakeholder needs related to your goals and may even choose to involve your project stakeholders in project design or implementation. Let's note here that some groups, particularly indigenous groups, should not be referred to as stakeholders in many circumstances. They have native rights and thus more than an interest in what happens on their lands. So be careful in the way that you use this term. One robust examination of stakeholders in citizen science defines stakeholders as individuals or organizations that contribute to realizing a citizen science project, have a vested interest in a project, or benefit from the research activities and data produced by a project. The authors recommended that citizen science project developers should invest time at the outset of a project to identify stakeholders who could use and potentially reuse data and knowledge, and they identified the following stakeholder groups. 1. Civil society organizations, informal groups, and community members. 2. Academic and research organizations. 3. Government agencies and departments. 4. Formal learning institutions such as schools. 5. Businesses or industry. And 6. Project participants. A simpler way to think about stakeholders for citizen science projects is to identify 3 stakeholder groups. 1. Those who are interested in the type of work that your project entails. 2. Those who have power over the type of work that your project entails. And 3. Those who will be impacted either positively or negatively by the potential outcomes that your project may generate. Working with stakeholders has several benefits. One is that stakeholders can help to ensure that project data and information will be widely shared. Another is that some stakeholders may become partners who play a large role in your project. We'll delve into partners in the second half of this presentation. Identifying stakeholders takes work and time. A project team may lack awareness of potential stakeholders. might not know how to access stakeholders, might find the process challenging, or might be limited by constraints on time or other resources. Nevertheless, taking time to identify and work with stakeholders typically results in a stronger and more useful project. As examples, let's look at two projects that have considered stakeholders early in their design process. First is Colorado Bat Watch. This project is being implemented by Rocky Mountain Wild in collaboration with multiple agencies and organizations, including the U.S. Forest Service. Bat Watch aims to collect baseline data on the locations and characteristics of bat roost sites in human structures, talus, trees, and snags. The goals of the project are to provide reliable data to meet multi-agency bat monitoring needs across the state, to inform efforts to address current and emerging threats to bat populations, to build public support for bat conservation, and to increase the capacity of partners to address pressing bat research and conservation needs in Colorado. The project leads have prepared a robust and multifaceted plan for Bat Watch, which is well worth reading for anybody who is designing a citizen science project, as the plan covers in detail most of the topics covered in this series of presentations. The plan is included in the resources for the toolkit that accompanies this series. In developing the plan, the project leads at Rocky Mountain Wild researched multiple stakeholders, including the U.S. Forest Service, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and the Colorado Natural Heritage Program. Information, needs, and requirements of all these stakeholders were incorporated into the program. For example, information was obtained from the 2018 Colorado Bat Conservation Plan, the U.S. Forest Service Region 2 2013 White Nose Syndrome Adaptive Management Strategy Environmental Assessment, Colorado Parks and Wildlife's White Nose Syndrome Response Plan, the Colorado State Wildlife Action Plan, the North American Bat Monitoring Program, the Western Bat Working Group, and the Colorado Bat Working Group. The project also reached out directly to stakeholders. Early in the project design process, the team organized a collaborative meeting with the U.S. Forest Service, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and the Colorado Natural Heritage Program, during which agency staff provided input to inform development of the Bat Watch implementation plan. The team also continually solicited input from agency partners through email and conference calls on various aspects of the project plan, including data sensitivity. As a result, Colorado Bat Watch is adding essential capacity to bat research and monitoring efforts throughout the state by addressing research and management needs unmet by existing efforts. Data can be used by all stakeholders, informing research and management efforts for each agency. Furthermore, the project continues to identify opportunities for synergy with the North American Bat Monitoring Program. Another example of a project whose early consideration of stakeholders has enabled large-scale growth is the Dragonfly Mercury Project, which works with volunteers to collect dragonfly larvae for mercury analysis. This nationwide program is a collaborative effort by the National Park Service, U.S. Geological Survey, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Appalachian Mountain Club, and the National Park Foundation. Data from this field study helps scientists and managers better understand and address mercury contamination, which is responsible for more than 3/4 of U.S. fish consumption advisories and threatens food webs in parks and protected lands. More specifically, the project shows where potential mercury risks are located, determines how well mercury emission reduction programs and policies are working, provides science to inform resource management and risk mitigation techniques, gets people involved in learning about mercury, and spreads the word about mercury issues. Each participating unit or national park provides staff from their resource management or interpretive division, or they link with other partners, such as a teacher from their community. These project liaisons coordinate, train, and lead participants in collecting samples which are shipped to a centralized laboratory for analysis. The project initially grew out of a local inquiry-based education program with researchers and a group of teachers in the northeastern U.S. Leaders expanded the effort by reaching out to U.S. Geological Survey scientists in the Ecosystems Mission Area and Environmental Health Program, implementing a national-scale demonstration study to test the efficacy of dragonflies as mercury biosentinels. Together, these organizations developed a project plan and protocols and refined the training materials with assistance from the Schoodic Institute at Acadia National Park. Over the course of a decade, program leaders identified and reached out to stakeholders to enhance engagement opportunities. Stakeholders included the National Park Foundation, other federal and state agencies, academic institutions, local municipalities, resource managers, and recreational and subsistence consumers of fish. So far, approximately 140 national parks, 20 national wildlife refuges, 2 national forests, and 2 tribal lands have participated. Land managers use the data to determine what areas might be at greatest risk of contamination, which can inform where and how to mitigate mercury risk with land management practices such as managing dam releases, prescribing fire, and restoring wetlands. Identifying stakeholders, also called stakeholder mapping, has traditionally been used in the fields of management, social responsibility, human resources, and education. Its use in citizen science has thus far been limited, but its benefits are numerous. Of course, once stakeholders have been identified, they will need to be engaged. You will find excellent resources for stakeholder engagement in the accompanying toolkit. Now let's talk about project partners. Running a project is clearly a big effort, and partnering with other organizations is a smart approach to project efficiency. Establishing partnerships yields benefits such as strengthening financial and technical support, linking the agency and stakeholders, educating the public, and increasing common activities across land ownerships. Partners also may help to recruit and manage volunteers, develop research questions, and analyze data. With a wealth of citizen science projects and infrastructure now available, it's a good idea to review what already exists in relationship to your goals and objectives before you make a decision about where to invest. You may be able to find partners among the projects and resources listed on SciStarter and citizenscience.gov. If you already have identified, for example, that your primary need for citizen science is to study plant phenology on your park, refuge, or forest, partnering with Nature's Notebook would make sense, because the Nature's Notebook platform provides much of what you need to build and operate a phenology-based project. This is exactly what the Midway Atoll National Wildlife Refuge Golden Crownbeard Phenology Project did. To eradicate this invasive plant, refuge biologists needed to know how quickly the plant grows and the timing of its movement from one life stage to the next. To determine this, they built a project on the Nature's Notebook platform that involved volunteers in recording data about crownbeard growth, flowering, fruiting, and seed drop. The results showed that they needed to institute a 28-day rotation between herbicide treatments in different sectors of the refuge. Even if you have the capacity to build new project infrastructure, partnering with complementary efforts can enhance, rather than segregate, data sets, amplifying the research potential in addition to saving resources. Beyond existing citizen science efforts, consider how your project would fit with other research and monitoring that is already underway within your agency, your region, or both. Federal, state, tribal, and local government partners can enhance the ability to collect, disseminate, and use data for management and decision-making. Building strong partnerships can be one strategy for project sustainability. Partners will put in their own funding and time if they are invested in shared goals. Consider other divisions within your own agency, along with municipalities, universities, and friends groups. Any organization with symbiotic interests can help to provide a diverse funding stream, build a base of supporters for your project, and fill roles on the project team. Project Tanager was among the first citizen science projects developed by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. Begun in 1993, the project enlisted volunteers in exploring the effects of forest fragmentation on the 4 species of tanagers that breed in the contiguous United States. The goal was to determine the minimum size of forest patch required for successful breeding of each of these species. Project Tanager was part of a larger effort called Partners in Flight, the Neotropical Migratory Bird Program, which is ongoing. Tanagers were chosen as the subject of this study for several reasons. First, they are an attractive and easily recognized neotropical migratory bird. Second, the scarlet tanager previously had been shown to be area sensitive and was declining in parts of its range as shown by data from the Breeding Bird Survey. Third, at least one of the 4 species of North American tanagers can be found during the breeding season across much of the United States and southern Canada. The protocol for conducting Project Tanager involved 2-minute point counts during which observers watched and listened for the presence of tanagers and recorded signs of breeding for any tanagers they located. Organizers knew that to make this work, the project would require multiple partners. First, although the organizers felt that birders could be trained to conduct point counts and look for signs of breeding, they also knew that the birders would need help identifying and locating suitably sized forest patches. Therefore, they partnered with the U.S. Forest Service, which detailed a full-time staff person to the Lab of Ornithology in Ithaca, New York. This person played a major role on the project team, working with individual forest staff to identify suitable patches on Forest Service lands across the country. Second, the organizers knew that many different sized forest patches occur on private lands. They reached out to the forest products industry for help in locating such lands suitable for the study. This had the dual effect of identifying additional study sites and bringing industry representatives into the project, which was important because some of them were skeptical of its intent, believing that the Lab of Ornithology was out to show negative effects of logging. Third, the organizers knew that recruiting birders with sufficient skills to conduct the protocols would be challenging. To recruit participants and to consult on project design, they reached out to other science and environmental organizations, including local and regional bird clubs and chapters of the National Audubon Society, for help in recruiting suitable observers. Finally, the organizers knew that skepticism about volunteer-collected data would rear its head for this project. At the time, researchers and organizers were just beginning to discover participants' ability to collect quality data, and Project Tanager employed fairly complex observation protocols. To head off critics, the organizers involved them, informing professional ornithologists about the project and its results through news releases and presentations at meetings of professional organizations such as the American Ornithologists Union. The pilot for Project Tanager began in the summer of 1993, when 70 teams of birders conducted counts at nearly 1,000 individual sites, searching for signs of tanager breeding in forests of 4 size classes: 1, 10, 100, and 1,000 hectares. Data were received for all 4 tanager species from 31 states and 2 Canadian provinces. During the following summer, several hundred teams participated and censused nearly 2,000 sites located on public, private, and corporate lands in 44 states and 4 Canadian provinces. Results revealed that forest patch size and degree of isolation from other patches influenced tanager distribution and breeding success. Together, these findings had implications for managing populations of neotropical migrants that breed in forests, and the data were used to create a guide to habitat management for forest managers. Successful partnerships thrive on mutual benefits and objectives, so when contacting potential partners, make your goals and intended outcomes clear. Focus on similarities among your groups, and strive to understand potential partners' perspectives. Plan regular meetings with your partners and stakeholders to evaluate your work and solve problems. The more communication and feedback, the better, and prepare to adapt to changing needs and goals of your partners. The federal government is committed to strengthening its relationships with indigenous communities and federally recognized tribes. Such partnerships can create a mutually beneficial relationship where tribes have more opportunities to benefit from federal programs and land management agencies benefit from indigenous community guidance and multi-generational knowledge systems. Agencies may enter into agreements, grants, or contracts with tribes just as they can with other organizations or agencies. It is important to remember, however, that when a tribe joins a partnership or collaborative process, it maintains a separate sovereign governmental relationship with the agency. The partnership or collaborative process is always conducted in addition to the separate process of government-to-government consultation between the agency and the tribe. It is important for members participating in a collaborative process or partnership to understand and respect the unique relationship and trust responsibility that federal agencies have with tribes. If your team has external partners, and if your project will include the exchange of something of value, that is, funds or services, then you need to develop an agreement. Agreements document roles, responsibilities, and the intent and scale of your project. If the project does not include the exchange of funds, services, or something of value, then you may want to develop a memorandum of understanding. This is used to document a framework for cooperation between your agency and other parties for carrying out activities in a coordinated and mutually beneficial manner, though each party directs its own activities and uses its own resources. If the project primarily benefits your agency and no cost sharing is anticipated, it may be a procurement. If the project is of mutual benefit to your agency and a non-federal party, and if there is an exchange of something of value that meets the purpose of both parties, it may be a partnership agreement. If the project serves a public good and meets the intent of a specified assistance authority, then it may be a grant or cooperative agreement. A very helpful resource for learning more about all of these topics is the Forest Service Partnership Guide, which includes detailed information about establishing agreements with partners, along with a decision tree illustrating the kinds of agreements used in Forest Service citizen science projects. Much of the information in the guide also is relevant to non-Forest Service agencies. The decision tree can be a useful tool to start out with. However, it should not replace discussions among the partners, program staff, and grants and agreements specialists. Those discussions should start early, be ongoing, and continue even after the agreement is executed. Thank you for joining me today. The goal of this presentation has been to discuss expanding your project team by working with stakeholders and partners. We hope that you'll take away 3 key ideas. First, stakeholders can help ensure that project data and information will be useful and widely shared. Second, that partners can add to the capacity and effectiveness of your project team. And third, that enlisting partners begins with sharing clear goals and desired project outcomes. Module 6 explores the broad topic of collecting and managing citizen science data. The accompanying Citizen Science Toolkit includes resources to further guide your project design efforts. Have a great day.